My kids and I spent last Shabbat at Camp Kindering for a bat mitzvah. Anyone ever been to Camp Kindering? I've actually been there for 2 b'nai mitzvah the last couple of months. But after Havdalah, I turned on my phone, and a post popped up from one of my classmates from Hebrew University in Yerushalayim, where we had spent our junior year abroad. It asked the community to recite Psalms for Hirsch Goldberg Poland's healing. John, Hirsch's father, had been a classmate of ours at Hebrew U. For a moment, I wondered, why now? Why would they be asking for the recitation of Psalms in this moment? Without lingering on the question, I saw what Psalms were available, and I chose Psalm 42 and signed up to recite it daily until Hirsch came home. Tzama nafshi le'Elohim le'el chai, matai avo ve'era'eh pnei Elohim. My soul thirsts for God, the living God. Oh, when will I come to appear before God? Hayta li dimati lechem yomam v'layla, be'emor elai kol hayom ayeh Elohecha. My tears have been my food day and night. I am ever taunted. Where is your God? It's a psalm about the searching and longing in brokenness, the desire to sustain hope even when we are downcast. It felt powerful and fitting. We said goodbye to the bat mitzvah and our friends and got in the car and made our way to my parents' home in Connecticut. We arrived pretty late. It was about 11:30, and I looked at my phone again. I had a text from a friend in California that said, "Sending love," she wrote. I texted back, "For what?" And then before she could answer, I received a text from Roli. Terrible news from Israel about Hirsch. Then I understood. I would not be reciting Psalm 42 until Hirsch was welcomed back into Rachel and John's arms alive. I would be reciting it as he was escorted to his final homecoming. Then the notifications started coming up from Haaretz about the execution of the 6 hostages and the discovery of their bodies in the Gaza tunnels. Hirsch Goldberg Poland, Carmel Gott, who's the cousin of our BJ member Gustavo Bruckner, Ori Danino, Alex Lobanov, Eden Yerushalmi, Almog Sarusi, Yehi Zichronam Levarcha. For 11 months, we have witnessed unspeakable tragedies, the horrors of October 7th, the brutality, the slaughter of old and young alike, entire families, kibbutzim desecrated and decimated, the war that followed, the devastation it has wrought, tens of thousands of Palestinians dead, so many children and entire families wiped out. Hundreds of Israeli soldiers have fallen in battle, refugees from the north and the south of Israel, and refugees in Gaza with nowhere to go. The West Bank is on fire with unlawfulness and terror. We have witnessed a corrupt, narcissistic, and immoral leadership in the Israeli government like never before. So much so that the streets are exploding in rage and sorrow, while the inhumanity, the hatred, the barbarity, and the sadism of Hamas has no limits. Hearing the news about Hirsch on Saturday crushed me. I spent July in Israel for the beginning of my 3-year Rabbinic Hartman Fellowship. Our group met with Rachel. She meets with any group that will meet with her. I attended a night of singing for Hirsch in the train station at the Tachana Rishona in Yerushalayim, where I was able to give John a hug. I donated to the Torah that was dedicated in Hirsch's honor. They had a week of goodness that particular week that culminated in the Seder Achnasat Torah at Hakel Minyan, where I also davened. I have been saying his name in prayer for refuah, for healing every day in these last months. I didn't know Hirsch, but because I knew John all those years ago, he felt close in some way, and the horror felt more proximate and personal. There is one pasuk from Parshat Shofetim, this week's parasha, that has been etched in my heart over this week. Tamim tihiyeh im Adonai Elohecha. You must be wholehearted with Adonai your God. The word tamim in Hebrew can be translated in many ways: wholehearted, perfect, pure, innocent, blameless. It's the same word actually that describes Noach from that famous pasuk. Ele toldot Noach ish tzadik tamim haya b'toratav, et ha'Elohim hitalech Noach. Noach was a righteous man. He was blameless, tamim, in his age. Noah walked with God. Commentaries explain this commandment to be wholehearted with God in a number of different ways. Rabbi Bachio from Spain in the early 14th century speaks to wholeheartedness as the complete harmony between one's inner and outer actions until the heart and tongue and all the limbs will be at one with each other. Rashi in the 11th century believes that to be wholehearted with God is to put your hope and trust in God. And since the pasuk that comes after the prohibition to use magic or divination, we are cautioned not to predict the future, not to desire to go to fortune tellers and things like that to understand what will happen next, but to trust and to accept what we receive from God. Chizkuni in the 13th century in France writes that to be tamim, to be wholehearted, is about having an exclusive relationship with either a person or God. One doesn't flirt with alternatives. Commentators also note that the taf in tamim, I don't think actually it's enlarged in this Sefer Torah, but there are about 16 or 17. There's a dispute on how many large letters there are in the Torah, and the taf in tamim is one of them in some Sifrei Torah. At least from the photograph I had of this Torah, it's not in there, but it's in others. And so some commentators note that because the taf is enlarged, therefore it understands that being wholehearted is fulfilling everything from Aleph to Taf, from A to Z, to do it all. It's a tall order to be tamim, to be wholehearted, to accept all that we are given, to believe God is responsible for all the good and the bad, and to trust that everything is as God wants it to be. My faith is less neat. It's not only accepting. I have that prophetic voice of righteous indignation and anger inside of me that comes from my belief in God's desire for justice and dignity in the world. The voice of tzedek, tzedek tirdof, justice, justice that you shall pursue, that also appears in this week's parasha. That voice is a companion to a faithfulness, a timimut, a wholeheartedness that is more pristine and graceful, more loving and compassionate. My faith is complicated, it is filled with struggle, and particularly in these challenging and devastating times, I am often filled with so many emotions and thoughts about God and the Jewish people, about Israel and about the world. Our Torah and our faith is both glorious and devastating right now. It is a shining light, and it is being used to be hateful and vengeful and immoral. I am devoted to my people and our unique history and our tradition and our consistent and hopeful future, and I am also devoted to a human humanity, and often we're being asked to choose between one or the other. It is sometimes unbearable to hold it all at once. I feel brokenhearted significantly more than I feel tamim, wholehearted. But in the midst of all this struggle, Rachel and John showed a way. After their son Hirsch tried to escape a bomb shelter from the Nova Music Festival, his best friend Daner was blown up before his eyes. Hirsch's hand was blown off, and he was taken on a truck to Gaza and hidden until his murder, which is what they believe to be 300 or some odd days later. Rachel and John displayed not only an unending commitment to get their son and all the hostages home, but they did it with a grace and faith that I could only describe as tamim, wholehearted. Rachel described often as she spoke that they were living in an alternative universe without any skin to protect them. In all their vulnerability, they still sought out the good and the holy. They advocated for the hostages over 40 nations, for Israeli mothers and Palestinian mothers and families. Rachel said over and over again, hope is mandatory. And in our time with her in July at Hartman, when someone asked how she keeps the faith, she shared how prayer gives her strength, how she is a believer, and she doesn't know any other way. In a moment when it would be easier to go mad, something almost majestic arose in Rachel and John for, of course, the worst possible reasons. In 1949, Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel gave an address to an assembly of Orthodox day school principals. It's entitled Pikuach Neshama, to save the soul. It's included in the book Spiritual Audacity and Moral Grandeur that Susanna Heschel edited. It's a play, of course, on the mitzvah Pikuach Nefesh, to save a life. All of the things that you can break, essentially, to save a life is the mitzvah of Pikuach Nefesh. He said, the purpose of Judaism is to destroy the instinct towards madness, which lurks at the gate of the human soul, to cause something of the world of divine nobility to dwell in this world. What is the meaning of nobility? A person possessing nobility is one whose hidden wealth surpasses his outward wealth, whose hidden treasures exceed his obvious treasures, whose inner depths surpasses by far that which he reveals. Nobility is the redeemed quality which rises within the soul when it exchanges the transient for the permanent, the useful for the valuable. In the worst possible circumstances imaginable, for 330 days, Rachel Goldberg and John Polin exhibited a wholeheartedness and nobility. That nobility was also expressed on day 332 at Hirsch's funeral. In Rachel's eulogy, she said, and one thing I keep thinking about is how, out of all the mothers in the world, God chose to give Hirsch to me. What must I have done in a past life to deserve such a beautiful gift? I am honest, and I say it is not that Hirsch was perfect, but he was the perfect son for me. And I am so grateful to God, and I want to do hakarat hatov, and thank God right now for giving me this magnificent present of my Hirsch. She went on to say directly to Hirsch, at this time I ask your forgiveness. If I was impatient or insensitive to you during your life, or neglectful in some way, I deeply and sincerely request your forgiveness. If there was something we could have done to save you and we didn't think of it, I beg your forgiveness. We tried so very hard, so deeply and desperately. I'm sorry. And John, in his eulogy, said amongst many things, we failed you. We all failed you. Maybe your death is the stone, the fuel that will bring home the 101 other hostages. Yehi zichron o lemapecha. May his memory be for a revolution. Imagine standing at the funeral of your son, who you haven't seen in 332 days. The only visions through a video that was released. And to show up with such love and gratitude and to ask forgiveness with wholeheartedness and nobility. And to even have hope that that moment might be a catalyzer for the return of the remaining hostages, that Hirsch's death might be the pathway for a different story to be born, a story of understanding, a story of love, and a story of peace. Tuesday night, with our hearts cracked open, we entered the month of Elul. On Wednesday morning, the shofar sounded for the first time in anticipation of the arrival of 5785. Elul is considered Eit Ratzon, a time of favor. The Svat Emet teaches it is a time to draw near and to come close to God and to see the holy point of divinity in ourselves, what I would describe as our own nobility. John and Rachel have shown us theirs, and we pray that together with their daughters, Libby and Orly, that they will be held and comforted, just as all the families enduring such devastating loss. That they have permission actually to not stay strong. People keep telling them, because Rachel said to her over and over again, stay strong and survive, that they have permission to not stay strong, but they will survive and to learn to live with Hirsch inside of them. In these endless hours of these 11 months, they have been teachers of wholeheartedness and nobility. Pirkei Avot teaches, she'ein lecha adam she'ein lo sha'a, ve'ein lecha davar she'ein lo makom. There is no person that does not have their day or their hour, and there is no thing that has not its place. The time is now to do the work to make this hour ours, to wholeheartedly pursue a life of nobility. When Heschel gave that address, think about it, in 1949, he was emphasizing that Jewish survival is not enough. To rotely practice Judaism, he gave it to Orthodox day school principals. Jewish survival is not enough. Jewish practice is not enough. Jewish knowledge is not enough. The soul needs to be saved from the potential vacuousness, and the corruption of existence. Jewish life is more than continuity or longevity. In our time, if we don't do pikuach neshama on ourselves, save our souls and the souls of the Jewish people and the soul of the Jewish state, the life of our people will be more and more in danger, not only from an external enemy, but from the inside, a withering, a fainting of the soul from the inside. I pray we have the audacity to meet this hour. I will conclude with the closing line of Psalm 42. Because hope is mandatory. And as the national anthem of Israel said, Alo avda tikvatenu. Ma tishtochachi nafshi uma tehemi alai, hochili le'elohim ki od odenu yeshuot panai velohai. Why so downcast, my soul? Why disquieted with me? Have hope in God. I will praise yet God. My God. Ken Yehi Ratzon, so may it be.